Hello there and welcome back. Before we begin tonight's story, I want to gently remind you to subscribe to this channel. It helps me bring you more of these strange and forgotten tales from history. Now, tonight's story is not a myth. It is not a legend. It is real history. The kind that makes you stop and wonder at how far human ambition will go. In the 1950s, in the heart of the Soviet Union, one surgeon carried out experiments that shocked the world, experiments that pushed the boundaries of life itself. He wanted to prove that organs could be transplanted, that life could be moved from one body into another, and so, in a dim laboratory outside Moscow, he created a two-headed dog. Why would anyone attempt such a thing? How did it work? And what became of this strange creature? Half medical miracle, half tragedy. That is the story we'll gently uncover tonight. To understand how a two-headed dog came to exist, we must first meet the man behind the experiment. His name was Vladimir Demikhov. Born in 1916, he grew up in Russia during a time of struggle and scarcity. Like many children of that era, he saw his country endure war, famine, and immense hardship. But young Demikhov also carried within him an unusual fascination, a hunger to explore the mysteries of life itself. As a university student, he showed an extraordinary gift for science. At just 21 years old, while still studying, he performed one of the very first experimental heart transplants, not on people, but on animals. This was long before the world believed such a thing could even be possible. The Soviet Union, rebuilding after the devastations of war, was determined to prove its superiority on the world stage, not just in space exploration, but in medicine and science as well. And so Demikhov was encouraged, even celebrated for his daring ideas. In those years, he carried out transplant after transplant. Hearts, lungs, and even whole organs were removed and replaced in an effort to see how far the body could adapt. Each experiment was carefully documented, each failure teaching him something new. But for Demikhov, organs were only the beginning. He had a vision far larger, far stranger. He wanted to show that not just parts of the body, but entire living sections, even a head, could be transplanted and survive. It was this vision that would soon lead him to the most infamous experiment of his career. By the early 1950s, Vladimir Demikhov was ready to attempt what few could even imagine. His goal was not simply to shock, though many later believed that was his only purpose. He wanted to prove a point, that life could be preserved and sustained when transplanted into a new body. The way he chose to demonstrate this was extraordinary. He would take a smaller dog and surgically graft its head and forelegs onto the neck of a larger dog. The surgery was long, complex, and undeniably gruesome. Blood vessels had to be connected with astonishing precision so that the smaller dog's brain would continue to receive blood. Airways had to be carefully joined. Every stitch, every cut, determined whether this fragile connection would survive even for a few moments. And then, against all odds, it worked. When the animals awoke, there were not one but two heads resting on a single body. The smaller dog's head was alive. It could blink. It could lap at milk offered to it in a dish. It even tried to bark. The larger dog, the host, moved and walked as before, and so together, joined by the surgeon's hand, they became one of the most shocking sights in medical history. A two-headed dog, living proof of Demikhov's daring vision. Reports describe how, when milk was given to the smaller head, the liquid would sometimes dribble back out from the cut in its neck, a haunting reminder of the unnatural state in which it lived. Observers noted that the two heads acted independently, each with its own reactions, its own awareness. Some of these creatures survived only a few days, others lived for weeks. Each time, Demikhov refined his methods, repeating the procedure more than 20 times. Each time, the world outside looked on in disbelief, torn between wonder and horror. For those who witnessed the two-headed dog in person, the memory never faded. It was a vision equal parts miracle and nightmare. It is tempting to imagine Vladimir Demikhov as a man driven only by cruelty or madness. But in truth, his motives were more complicated. At the time, organ transplantation was a dream, something that seemed almost impossible. If a surgeon could not keep tissue alive after being moved, how could anyone hope to replace a failing heart or a damaged lung in a human patient? Demikhov believed that by creating the two-headed dog, he could make a powerful argument. He wanted to prove beyond doubt that complex surgery could reconnect living systems, that blood could be rerouted, that organs could function in a new body. The shocking nature of the experiment was, in his mind, the very thing that made it convincing. But there was also the matter of pride. The Soviet Union in the 1950s was locked in a fierce rivalry with the West. Every discovery, every invention, every daring experiment was seen as a chance to show the world that socialism produced stronger, braver science. In Moscow, officials recognized that Demikhov's work might become a symbol of Soviet superiority, proof that Russian scientists were pushing boundaries no one else dared cross. So, while the outside world recoiled in horror, Demikhov found support at home. He was given space, resources, and time to continue, and continue he did. Yet even within his own country, whispers began to rise. Some colleagues wondered if the spectacle had gone too far. Were these creatures true science, or simply a grotesque display? For Demikhov, there was no doubt. To him, each dog was a step closer to a future where human lives could be saved with transplanted organs. He saw himself not as a monster, but as a pioneer walking uncharted ground. When news of Demikhov's experiments spread beyond the Soviet Union, the world reacted with shock. Newspapers in the West published photographs of the two-headed dogs, and the images seemed almost too strange to believe. Some readers dismissed them as propaganda. Others stared in horrified fascination. In medical circles, however, the reaction was more complex. For surgeons who dreamed of saving lives through transplantation, Demikhov's work was undeniable proof that such things might truly be possible. One young South African doctor named Christian Barnard even traveled to Moscow to observe Demikhov in person. Years later, Barnard would perform the world's first successful human heart transplant, and he openly credited Demikhov as his inspiration. So while the public saw a nightmare, many doctors saw a breakthrough. But with that admiration came a heavy cloud of controversy. Animal welfare groups condemned the surgeries as cruel and unnecessary. Even some fellow scientists argued that the suffering outweighed the knowledge gained. What right, they asked, did one man have to create a creature destined only for a short, painful life? The debate echoed a larger question that still troubles us today. How far should we go in the name of science? Is progress worth any price, or must there be limits? Demikhov himself was unmoved by criticism. To him, the two-headed dogs were stepping stones, tragic, yes, but vital. He believed the future of medicine demanded such sacrifices, and indeed, history shows that his bold experiments paved the way for life-saving operations we now take for granted. Yet the haunting image of two heads sharing one body lingers in memory, a reminder of the thin line between genius and cruelty. And so, the story of the two-headed dog is not just a tale of shock or curiosity. It is the story of human ambition, of one man determined to prove that life could be transplanted, reshaped, and reborn. Vladimir Demikhov did not set out to horrify the world, though that was often the result. He set out to test the limits of surgery, to push medicine into a future that seemed impossible, and in doing so, he left behind an image that the world would never forget. Two heads, two minds, two beings, joined by science into one fragile, fleeting existence. For some, this remains an example of cruelty, of science gone too far. For others, it stands as a necessary step toward the life-saving transplants that now rescue thousands of patients every year. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between. As you close your eyes tonight, you may picture that strange creature, walking slowly across a Soviet laboratory floor, two pairs of eyes looking out in different directions, two mouths drinking from the same dish. A living paradox, a moment in history both wondrous and unsettling. And with that, we come to the end of our story. If you enjoyed this gentle telling, please remember to subscribe. I share these strange corners of history often, always in this calm and steady way, so you can play them in the background as you rest, night after night. Thank you for spending this time with me. Good night, and may your dreams be peaceful.